Hello, my name is Edward Carlton, and welcome to A Godly Conversation. And today I want to continue in this series on the elementary Christian principles. Today we'll be doing a lesson on faith and what is faith in the general sense. I'm going to do one or two more lessons on faith. The second lesson will be on Jesus specifically, having faith in Him. And then thirdly, if I decide to do this one, I'm considering it, is doing a lesson on the consequences of not having faith. What does it lead to in a man's life when a man does not have faith? Well, we'll go ahead and start. We'll start in Hebrews chapter 11. We'll read verses 1 through 3. It says, "Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. For by it the elders obtained a good testimony. By faith we understand that the worlds were framed by the word of God, so that the things which are seen were not made of things which are visible." So here we have a pretty decent, I don't know if I'd say full, but a good start or good definition of what faith is there in verse 1. And the rest of the chapter goes on to continues to speak about faith and what it looked like in those who had it. But for now, we'll stick here with verse 1 through 3. So it says, faith is the substance of things hoped for, or the evidence of things not seen. Other words that get used here or in other translations, where it might say it is the assurance of things hoped for, or confidence, or it might say the certainty or conviction of things not seen. But it's by faith that I believe, or that I have this assurance that I have something to look forward to the promises that God has made. I'm hoping towards the future, not just what I have right now. I'm hoping towards what I don't have. And I have this conviction that these things are real. Now, people often say that, or sometimes say, I just believe, or it's blind faith. We use this term, blind faith. And it's not something that I have. I don't believe just because I believe. I don't have this blind faith. I have faith in God based on the evidence that He has provided already. And because He has shown Himself a true witness in what He's done and said, I have reason to hope for the things in the future. So I have this conviction based on His power, His character. I have reason to hope for the things in the future. So I have this conviction. I have evidence of the things that are there by what He's already done. I have assurance of what I hope for by who He has shown Himself to be and by the things He has already done. In verse 2, he says, "For by it the elders obtained a good testimony." So these elders, these men of old or ancients, says because they also possessed this faith, they obtained a good testimony from God. God would testify about them. Like it says that Abraham believed and it was accredited to him for righteousness. He was called God's friend. These type of things. And the faith here wasn't just people who I just have a mental belief. Faith was producing righteousness in their lives. And so this would also produce this good testimony. They weren't just, I just believe. No, they were men whose faith was causing good things to come forth from them. Verse 3, he says, "By faith we understand that the worlds were framed by the word of God, so that the things which are seen were not made of things which are visible." And so I have this faith that everything that I look around at, this great order that I see, this panoply of creation, this large variety of things that I see, from the earth, water, the sky, trees, birds, and the different animals, that these things did not come about of their own will or their own volition, but they came about by His will and His creative order. And that's what I see when I look at creation, is great order. I see great ingenuity and creativeness and imagination. And so it's through that faith, when I look around, it is obvious to me that there is a creator by the things that are made. And it's through those things, and again, that's evidence to me that there is a God, and therefore I can believe him that he is able to do the things that he says he would do. Psalm 19. Verses 1 through 4b. Psalm 19, verses 1 through 4b, or halfway through the verse of 4. And I've always enjoyed this passage. It said, "The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament shows his handiwork. Day unto day reveals utter speech, and night unto night reveals knowledge. There is no speech nor language where their voice is not heard. Their line has gone out through all the earth, and their words to the end of the world." So starting back to verse 1, we'll go through these verses. It says, "The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament shows his handiwork." So when I look up into the sky and into the heavens, and we see these heavenly bodies, when we see the different colors that the sky produces and the clouds and these kind of things, it says here that these things declare his glory. They're singing his praises. They speak about him. We don't see him. I don't hear a voice, and this is going to start talking about that as well. But they speak about who God is. Now, I don't know through them his full character, but I do see through them that there is some kind of creative force. There is this intellect that has made everything in order in the heavens and also here on earth. So it says, "The heavens declare his glory, and the firmament," and so the sky, "shows forth his handiwork." The things that we see in the sky, the way the light comes through the clouds, the way the clouds fly overhead, and the different types of clouds, the storms and the winds, and the way everything works together in unison, and then the beauty of it all as well. Right? Verse 2, he says, "Day unto day utters speech, and night unto night reveals knowledge." So, and this is something that happens daily. That every day, from the beginning of creation, the heavens and the earth and the sky are declaring his praise and his glory through the things that are made. Day unto day utters speech. Every day these things are speaking to us, to those who are willing to open their eyes and to listen and to consider, wow, how did all of this get made? Does it make sense that it came about by accident? Does it make sense that all this order came about through random process? No, it doesn't. It says night unto night reveals knowledge. Like at night when the stars come out and the moon and these sometimes a really clear night in a certain place where it almost looks like clouds in the heavens. And just the beauty of it all and the immensity of it all. And the way all of it works like clockwork. Like we use the sun and the moon and the stars for seasons. We use the sun, the moon, and the stars for navigation. These kind of things. They're not all just lumped together. It's not a patchwork. It's like a clock in the heavens. And so these things reveal knowledge to us, to the thinking man who does not have his mind set just on things on the earth. In verse 3, "There is no speech nor language where their voice is not heard." So there's no speech or language where the heavens and the firmament do not declare the glory of God. So it doesn't matter what language you speak. Whether I wake up in America, and we're here in Albania, or whether I go down to Greece, or we go over to Italy, or over to Russia, Australia, it doesn't matter. Everywhere, it's a universal language. The language of creation, the language of the heavens, is a language that is able to be heard through all languages, through all nations. All men are able to look up and to understand that there is a God, a powerful God, a creative God, an intelligent God, by the things that he sees just by looking up into the sky at night, or into the sky during the day, or to look around at the things that are made around him. So everywhere, there's not a place whether you're out on the ocean or up on Mount Everest, where this voice, this knowledge is not heard, it's able to be revealed. It says their line has gone out through all the earth and their words to the end of the world. And these aren't words that you hear. These are words that come through, this would be, I guess a way to say it would be natural revelation. So we're not even speaking about the scriptures. But God has shown himself through the things that he has made. We're going to get into that in the next verse that we look at. But these words are declaring him, revealing him, just by the things that are made. And when you consider the things that are made, it's very interesting. Life is very interesting. To consider the heavens, to look up to the clouds, to look down to the earth, and to consider the simple things like grass or sand, and to really ponder these things like, these are not simple things. These are not just like pond scum. Everything I see is extremely complex. Nothing is not complex. Everything is complex. The grain of sand or the dirt that you walk on in the day, it's extremely complex. This is not simple stuff we're dealing with. Everything that this house is made of, all the molecules and the elements, everything is complex. And we're able to take the things that are made and make wonderful and useful tools for them and use them to our advantage because they were designed to be that way. And that's one reason we should give thanks to God from his creation, that this creation that is revealing himself to us. So go to Romans chapter 1, verses 18 through 20. So Romans 1, verses 18 through 20. For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men who suppress the truth in unrighteousness, because what may be known of God is manifest in them, for God has shown it to them. For since the creation of the world, his invisible attributes are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse. So starting back to verse 18. It says, for the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness who suppress the truth in unrighteousness. So God is declaring, so he's shown himself to us. He's put the knowledge of himself in us. He's shown himself to all men by the things that are made. And so there's this divine judgment that's coming. Like he says, it's declared from heaven. And it's against all unrighteousness of men who suppress and ungodliness, who suppress the truth and righteousness. So here they see all this stuff and they say, there is no God. How could there be a God who made all this stuff? And it's not that that's impossible to believe in God. It generally, when you believe in God, there are consequences. When you believe in God, it challenges your lifestyle. It says, I have to live differently, because if there is a God, it matters what I do on this earth. It matters whether I walk in sin and immorality and drunkenness and whatever else other sin there might be. And if there is a God, there are true consequences. If there's no God, it doesn't really matter what I do. But if there is a God, it truly matters. Everything that I do, how I walk, how I talk, how I treat others, how I acknowledge him, how I give thanks to him. But men who say there is no God, they look at everything and say, they create fables like evolution or something like that, or that we just evolved from nothing. Everything was created from nothing, or has always existed or created without a God, a Big Bang, and then we're just here, voila, with no order, with no direction, these kind of things, which is a really untenable theory. But they take the idea of God and they mock it and they suppress it because God challenges them in their lifestyle and how they live. It's like they suffocate it. It's like they're taking the truth and putting a pillow over its head. He says in verse 19, because what may be known of God, and this is why the wrath is coming from the wrath has been declared from heaven, or revealed from heaven, because what may be known of God is manifest in them, for God has shown it to them. For since the creation of the world, his invisible attributes are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made. And this is understandable by the things that we see. it's obvious there's a God because there is a creation that works in great order together. Everything works well together. Everything is interesting and beautiful. It's like the food that I eat was made for enjoyment. How do I know that? Well, it's because of the way that it tastes. The tongue was made for talking. It was made to enjoy the food. My lungs were made for breathing, right? And every engineer, we know that everything made by man, whether it be houses or cars or phones, these things were engineered to a purpose or to a solution. It's like, well, how do we know? And you had, like, if we take the camera, it was designed to see. But we had to understand what sight was to be able to design something to see. We have to understand what hearing is to be able to design something to record. We have to understand what sound is to design something to play sound. And so God also knew what sight was. He knew what hearing was. He knew what sound was to be able to design to these things. He knew what taste was, to be able to sense taste. He knew what feeling was, to be able to design for us to be able to feel. You know, I'm amazed sometimes just how sensitive my fingers are and just the amount of texture they can feel. But you know, it's like stopping and thinking about these things. Like, how does that happen? Does that happen by accident? No, God has shown it to us that He is there by the things that He has made. And so those who suppress the truth and unrighteousness, it's not that they don't know there's a God, but they're refusing to acknowledge Him. They're refusing to acknowledge that there is a God who made all things, who is all powerful, all wise, all knowing, all intelligent, all creative. Like, no one can have the amount of creativity that God has. And so because of that, they will be held to judgment because they refuse to acknowledge the truth. And one of the ways I explain this is that, or the analogy that I would use anyway, I'm an artist. And whenever we speak about great art, we always speak about it while speaking about the artist in conjunction with the art. Like when we speak about the Pietà in Rome, I think that's Rome, and you speak about Pietà along with Michelangelo. We speak about Mona Lisa, we speak about it along with Leonardo da Vinci. You know, we don't ever separate the artist from the art. And it would be wrong to do so. It would be a great insult to look at the Mona Lisa and say, oh, that just came about by accident, or to refuse to give credit to the one who created it. And in the same way, it's a great insult to realize that there is a God, but because of the consequences of acknowledging a God, say, oh, there is no God, and hoping against hope there's no God, because if there is a God, I'm going to be held accountable for my sins. No, God has shown that He is there. He is shown by what He's made. The same way I know there was I've never met Leonardo da Vinci, but I know he was there by the works that he made. And the history is written about him. You know, there was Michelangelo by the works that he made. And in the same way, I know that there is a God by the works that He has wrought, which are far greater in scope, in ingenuity, and creativity, and in power than anything that we made. They're so great that it's not worth comparing other men's accomplishments with what He has done. And so it says there, it says so that His eternal attributes are clearly seen. That's His power, His intellect, His creativity, His justice, His judgment, these things. I can tell that they're there by the things that are made. In the same way, like when I look at this phone, I recognize there's intelligence there by the thing that I'm using to record this video. Right? I know, I comprehend there is intelligence there, and effort, and time to make these kind of things. So it says, so that they are without excuse. So all who aren't of faith will properly be held to account for this deep insult of refusing to acknowledge Him who made all things. So faith really is a simple thing. It's simply accepting and acknowledging the things that I see. It's not this difficult thing to accept that there is a God. It's an easy thing to accept there's a God. It's the intelligent thing to do. It's the intellectual thing to do. It's the honest thing to do. So faith is not this deep, hard thing. It's an easy thing, and it's based on reality. It's not based on ethereal pie-in-the-sky theories. No, it's based on hard evidence from the things that we see. And I'm not even talking about yet Jesus and the resurrection. I'm just talking about, is there a God up in heaven? Let's go to Revelation chapter 4, verses 9 through 11. Revelation chapter 4, verses 9 through 11. And so when we get here, it's not my goal to explain everything here. This is apocalyptic literature. And it's easy for people to get lost in the sensationalism of Revelation without accepting or acknowledging or getting some of the main points that the book is trying to get across. So it's not my goal to accept all the symbology here or foreshadowing or that kind of stuff, but to simply point out verse 11 mainly. So verses 9 through 11, whenever the living creatures, this vision in heaven, whenever the living creatures give glory and honor and thanks to him who sits on the throne, who lives forever and ever, the 24 elders fall down before him who sits on the throne and worship him who lives forever and ever, and cast their crowns before the throne, saying, You are worthy, O Lord, to receive glory and honor and power, for you created all things, and by your will they exist and were created. So there's, in this literature here, in this chapter, we have the 4 living creatures and we have the 24 elders. So just briefly, I believe the 4 living creatures are speaking of angels, and the 24 elders are speaking of the how would I say it? All of God's people. And I think it's Ezekiel who speaks as well about these types of living creatures. But also, when you're reading the scriptures a lot, you start to recognize certain numbers. So 24 simply being, 12 plus 12, as in the 12 tribes of Israel representing the people of the Old Testament, and the 12 apostles representing the people of the New Testament. So I believe that's what the 24 is talking about. It's talking about the completeness of God's people from old and new. I believe that's what that's talking about. But who are they casting their crowns down before? Not just a man. It says they cast their crowns down before the throne. They fall down before him who sits on the throne and worship him who lives forever and ever. And that's one of the things we're recognizing about God, is that he is different from his creation. So we get rid of these silly questions. Well, who created God? Because God is outside of creation. We don't attribute the same thing to him. I'm here in physical reality. It says God is spirit. Okay? So, but I, even though I have a spirit, I'm also physical. And I have a physical body sitting on a physical chair on a physical ground, right? Breathing in physical air. Everything about this reality is physical. None of this is forever and ever. So I'm praising him and worshiping him who lives forever and ever, which means he does not die. He doesn't have beginning. He doesn't have end. He's different. He's outside of time. Time doesn't mean anything to him. These physical things don't mean anything to him. Right, so that's who we're worshiping. And so what do they say? They say, You are worthy, O Lord, to receive glory and honor and power, and not for no reason. You're worthy, so God is worthy to receive certain things from his creation. He's worthy to receive glory and honor and power. Right? Glory for the great acts that he has done, honor for his great character, and power. He is the one who holds all power. And I'm not saying I understand it completely how to explain that, but he is worthy to receive these things. He says, For you created all things. So not for no reason is he worthy to receive these things, glory and honor and power. For you created all things, and by your will they exist and were created. So it was through him. So we should give, we have an expression, give credit to whom it is due. And that's and it's a simple task to do that. I have a habit of thanking my wife for dinner at night. Well, give credit to whom credit is due. I'm coming in from work, and I have food prepared for me, right? And it's proper to give thanks to someone who does something for me. You know, there's a neighbor that we have here, and she's a cook at a restaurant, and she was showing us, she doesn't speak English, and my Albanian is not fluent, but we're able to get by. And she was showing us some pictures of the things that she's made at work, and she's quite talented. The pictures everything looked really good. Just the cooking looked high quality, and the way the pictures were done were very high quality, and these kind of things. And she was obviously very happy she was very pleased with her work. And she's a very nice woman. And she was telling us she was making petula, which is like a donut type thing, fried dough. And I was telling her I love donuts, right? So a couple of days later, she brings some over. She brings over this tray, and it was a lot of donuts. And we're a lot of people, we're 12 people. And she brought us, 24, 30 donuts, something like that. And then she also brought us some like hazelnut spread to put on it. And so it's proper. She was very kind, right, and considerate and generous towards us. So it's proper to give thanks, right? To just say thank you so much, and to express to her gratitude for taking the time for it, for being so generous. And also she was doing it out of the kindness of her heart. She enjoyed doing it for us. And it's right for us to acknowledge this. And so in the same way, it's right for us to acknowledge God and to give thanks to Him for life, to give thanks to Him for all the good things that we have. And so, but it's through Him that this creation came into being, and it's also by His will that they continue to exist. It's not like He didn't set it on this, like, He didn't just wind up a clock and set it and let it loose. No, He's active in it. And it's by His will it continues. He's active in the affairs of men. And it's sad to me when I hear Christians sometimes say that, they don't believe God's really active in daily life. It's like what it says even a sparrow doesn't fall to the ground apart from the will of your Father, which is a very small thing. It says the very hairs of your head are numbered. Right? He's taking note of the small things on earth. Even a sparrow doesn't fall to the ground apart from the will of our Father. Yes, he's engaged. He's active. And it's right for us to give Him credit and to give Him glory for what He's done, and to thank Him for this good life that we have. Let's go to Hebrews chapter 11, last verse. Hebrews chapter 11. But without faith it is impossible to please Him, for he who comes to God must believe that He is, and that He is a rewarder of those who diligently seek Him. And this makes sense. This goes back to this artist analogy. How can I please somebody if I'm denying their existence? Even a person, a human person. How can I please that person if I refuse to give them credit for the things that they have done? I refuse to acknowledge the things they've done, even though it's clear that they've done them. Right? It doesn't make any sense that I can please God if I refuse to believe that He exists. And this faith is not just believing that He is. Because it says clearly, I must believe that He is. And that's part of faith. But here's another part. He's not just asking me to believe in Him. He's also letting me know He's a rewarder. Right? And He's looking to us. Are we looking for the reward from Him? Do we seek the benefit from Him? Right? He doesn't have to give benefit, but out of His goodness, He desires to do good to mankind. He desires to do good for His children. He desires salvation for His children. He desires full lives for His children. So it says that He is a rewarder of those who diligently seek Him. And that's part of faith. If I believe that God is a rewarder, that when I pray, do I recognize who I'm talking to? So of all the friends I could have on this earth, do I recognize who I'm talking to? I recognize who He is. Do I stop and consider how great He is and what He's able to do? Do I rid myself in my mind of these thoughts of, that's too big, that's too great, God wouldn't do that. God is capable of all things, and we need to come to that conclusion that the God that had created the heavens and the earth we shouldn't think he's not able to do even more than that. We shouldn't think that he's not active in the affairs of men, and we shouldn't think that he's not able to work and act on behalf of those who believe in him. And so I hope that lesson, the short lesson, is encouraging and will build you up in the faith, and look forward to doing the other one or two on this topic.